It's been a challenging few years.
Wade Wilson?
Who's asking?
Mr. Wilson, you appear to have soiled Wade. To be a hero among heroes.
Your little cinematic universe is about to change forever. Jesus.
What happens when Marvel's most unstoppable mutant teams up with its most unpredictable anti-hero? The result is absolute chaos. In this video, I'll reveal hidden details, mind-blowing facts, Easter eggs, and whether Deadpool and Wolverine 2024 truly lives up to the massive hype. So stay till the end and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the SONU HUB family for more amazing movie reviews and facts. Deadpool and Wolverine is a 2024 American superhero movie based on the Marvel Comics characters Deadpool and Wolverine. The movie was made by Marvel Studios' Maximum Effort and 21 Labs Entertainment and released by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It's the 34th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe MCU and continues the story from Deadpool 2016 and Deadpool 2 2018. The film was directed by Shawn Levy, who also helped write the script along with Ryan Reynolds, Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and Zeb Wells. Ryan Reynolds returns as Wade Wilson, better known as Deadpool, while Hugh Jackman comes back as Logan, also known as Wolverine. The movie also stars Emma Corrin, Morena Baccarin, Rob Delaney, Leslie Uggams, Aaron Stanford, and Matthew McFadden. In this adventure, Deadpool teams up with a grumpy and unwilling Wolverine from another universe to stop the Time Variance Authority TVA from wiping out Deadpool's entire universe. Work on a third Deadpool movie first started at 20th Century Fox back in November 2016, but after Disney bought Fox in March 2019, the project moved over to Marvel Studios. In November 2020, Wendy Molyneux and Lizzie Molyneux-Logellin came on board to write the script. Shawn Levy officially signed on as the director in March 2022, and Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick returned from the first two movies to rewrite the screenplay. The writers had a tough time figuring out the right story until Hugh Jackman decided in August 2022 that he wanted to play Wolverine again after retiring from the role following the Fox X-Men movies. Once Jackman agreed to return, everything started falling into place. The movie also brought back several actors from the X-Men franchise and other Marvel projects, using the multiverse storyline as a fun way to celebrate and honor Fox's Marvel movies. Filming kicked off in May 2023 at Pinewood Studios, Bovingdon Studios, and different locations in Norfolk, England, along with scenes shot in Los Angeles. Production had to stop in July because of the 2023 SAG-AFTRA actors strike. Filming finally picked back up in November and wrapped in January 2024. The official title was revealed about a month later. The soundtrack includes an original score by Rob Simonson, along with several well-known songs. One of the biggest musical moments features Madonna's classic hit Like a Prayer, which plays during some of the movie's most memorable scenes. Deadpool and Wolverine also made history as the first R-rated movie in the MCU, keeping the same mature style and rating as the first two Deadpool films. Deadpool and Wolverine had its world premiere on July 22, 2024 at the David H. Koch Theater in New York City. It officially hit theaters across the United States on July 26 as part of the MCU's Phase 5 lineup. Critics gave a lot of praise to Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman's performances, saying their chemistry, comedy, and action scenes were some of the best parts of the movie, while some reviewers felt the overall story wasn't as strong as they hoped. Audiences still showed up in huge numbers. The film became a massive box office hit, earning around $1.338 billion worldwide. It finished as the second highest grossing movie of 2024, became the highest grossing R-rated movie ever made, and ranked among the top 20 highest grossing movies of all time when it was released. With an estimated net production budget of about $429 million, it's believed to be one of the most expensive movies ever produced. The film also picked up several award nominations and honors, and because of its huge success, a sequel is already in development. In 2018, Wade Wilson, better known as Deadpool Ryan Reynolds, is a smart-mouth mercenary from Earth-1 U005. Thanks to an experimental treatment that cured his terminal cancer, he has an incredible healing factor. The downside is that the treatment left his entire body covered in severe scars. Using Cable's time travel device, Wade goes back in time and saves his girlfriend Vanessa Carlisle, Morena Baccaram, from dying. After that, he jumps from his own universe to Earth 616, also known as the Sacred Timeline. Hoping to become one of the Avengers, he meets Happy Hogan, Jon Favreau, and asks for a chance to join the team, but Happy turns him down, disappointed. Wade heads back to his own universe. 6 years later, Wade and Vanessa have broken up. He has given up being Deadpool and now works as a used car salesman alongside his best friend and former X-Force teammate, Peter Wisdom, Rob Delaney. Wade still lives with his elderly blind roommate, Blind Al, Leslie Uggams. He is also still close with his friends, including Dopinder Karansoni, the friendly taxi driver who looks up to Wade, Negasonic teenage warhead Brianna Hildebrand, the young X-Men mutant who can unleash powerful explosive blasts, her girlfriend Yukio Shioli Kutsuna, Colossus, Stefan Kapeshik, Buck Randall Reader, Shatterstar, Lewis Tan, and several other familiar faces during Wade's birthday party. Everything changes when agents from the Time Variance Authority TVA suddenly show up and arrest him. They bring him before Mr. Paradox, Matthew McFadden, who explains that the TVA exists outside of time and is responsible for protecting the sacred timeline and keeping the entire multiverse in order. Paradox offers Wade a chance to leave his old life behind and permanently live on the sacred timeline. Wade happily agrees at first, but then Paradox reveals some terrible news. He explains that Wade's universe is slowly falling apart because its anchor being has died. That anchor being is Logan, also known as Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, the legendary mutant with razor-sharp adamantium claws, a nearly indestructible skeleton, and an incredible healing factor. Without its anchor being, Wade's entire universe is doomed. Instead of letting nature take its course, Paradox wants to speed things up by using a machine called the Time Ripper. According to him, destroying Wade's universe quickly would be a more merciful ending than letting it slowly disappear over time. Refusing to accept that fate, Wade steals Paradox's TemPad, a device that opens portals across time and different universes. He travels to Logan's grave, hoping he can somehow bring Wolverine back to life and save his timeline. Wade digs up Logan's skeleton but quickly realizes there's no way to resurrect him. When TVA agents arrive to stop him, Wade hilariously grabs Logan's adamantium bones and uses them as weapons to fight everyone off before escaping, since the TemPad lets him travel across the multiverse. Wade starts searching for another version of Wolverine who could take Logan's place. Eventually, Wade finds a different Wolverine and drags him back to the TVA. But Paradox immediately tells him it won't work. An anchor being can't simply be replaced, especially not by this version of Wolverine, who is considered the absolute worst Wolverine in the entire multiverse. According to Paradox, this Logan once failed his entire world in a way that can never be forgiven. When Wade realizes Paradox has been carrying out his own secret plans without approval from his bosses, Paradox gets rid of both Wade and Wolverine by sending them to the Void, a giant wasteland located at the end of time where erased timelines end up. The two immediately start fighting each other, but after beating each other up for a while, they realize neither of them can actually die because of their healing powers. Wade convinces Logan that maybe the TVA can change his tragic past if they escape together. While traveling through the Void, they are captured along with Johnny Storm, also known as the Human Torch, Chris Evans, a member of the Fantastic Four who can surround himself with flames and fly through the air. The three are taken to Cassandra Nova, Emma Corrin, the cruel and incredibly powerful twin sister of Professor Charles Xavier. She possesses terrifying telepathic and telekinetic powers. Cassandra made a deal with the TVA and now rules over the Void after being exiled there. In exchange, she was allowed to walk freely instead of remaining trapped. On the way there, Wade jokingly tells Cassandra that Johnny had been talking trash about her the whole time. Cassandra doesn't find it funny at all and instantly kills Johnny. She then leaves Wade and Logan to be eaten by Alioth, the gigantic monster that roams the Void. Luckily, the two escape by stealing a jetpack from Cassandra's base. After escaping, Wade and Logan find an abandoned diner where they eat whatever food they can find. During a rare, quiet moment, they open up about their regrets and failures. Wade explains that in his own universe, Wolverine sacrificed himself while trying to protect Laura, also known as X-23, the young mutant clone who was raised in a secret laboratory. Later, Wade and Logan run into another Deadpool variant called Nicepool, who points them toward a resistance group fighting Cassandra along the way. Wade accidentally admits he isn't even sure whether the TVA can really fix Logan's past. Feeling betrayed, Logan loses his temper and attacks Wade until both of them collapse unconscious. Furious, Logan tells Wade it's no surprise both the Avengers and the X-Men rejected him since they usually accept almost everybody. When they wake up, they are rescued by the Resistance. The group includes Laura X-23, Daphne Keane, Elektra, Jennifer Gunner Blade, Wesley Snipes, and Gambit, Channing Tatum. Every one of them ended up in the Void after their own universes were destroyed. Once their anchor beings died, Wade suggests they all work together to take Cassandra down. Laura convinces Logan to stop blaming himself for the deaths of the X-Men in his world and help fight back. Together they come up with a plan to attack Cassandra's fortress, distract her forces, and find a way home. While the Resistance battles Cassandra's army, Wade and Logan use Juggernaut's special helmet to block Cassandra's telepathic powers. Laura had earlier defeated Juggernaut and brought the helmet to Wade while Cassandra was inside Logan's mind. Cassandra warns them that she can't send anyone home unless the helmet is removed, and promises she'll kill them the second it comes off. Before anything else happens, Cassandra is betrayed by her own follower, John Allardyce, also known as Pyro, Aaron Stanford. Secretly working for Paradox, Pyro shoots Cassandra and nearly kills her because Paradox now sees her as an even bigger threat than Wade or Logan. The only way to save Cassandra is to remove Juggernaut's helmet. Logan convinces Wade to trust Cassandra, even though there's no guarantee she won't kill them afterward once the helmet comes off. Cassandra fully heals herself and opens a portal back to Earth 105 using a sling ring, allowing Wade and Logan to return home. Soon after, Cassandra learns about Paradox's Time Ripper from Pyro. Furious that he betrayed her, she kills him and follows Wade and Logan back to Earth 105. Now she plans to use the Time Ripper herself to erase every timeline in existence, leaving only the void behind. She also summons an army of Deadpool variants who overwhelm Wade and Logan in an insane battle. During the fight, Nicepool is killed before Peter suddenly shows up and manages to distract all the Deadpool variants. Paradox explains that the only way to destroy the Time Ripper is for someone to interrupt the flow of matter and antimatter powering it. The problem is that bringing those two energies together will create a massive explosion that should instantly kill whoever does it. Instead of letting one person make the sacrifice, Wade and Logan grab both energy sources together and destroy the Time Ripper as a team. The explosion wipes out Cassandra, but thanks to their combined healing abilities, both heroes somehow survive. With Paradox's plan finally exposed, Hunter B-15 Wunmi Mosaku, one of the TVA's leaders, arrests him. She thanks Wade and Logan for saving the multiverse and confirms that their actions stopped Earth 1 Solar 005 from collapsing. Wade asks Hunter B-15 to rescue the Resistance members from the void and also change Logan's painful past. She agrees to save the Resistance, but explains that Logan's tragic history can't be erased because those painful experiences are exactly what made him the hero he is today. However, she does allow Logan to stay in Wade's universe. In the final scenes, everyone gathers together, including a rescued Laura. During the celebration, Logan encourages Wade to finally fix things with Vanessa and give their relationship another shot. Casting: Ryan Reynolds returned as Wade Wilson Deadpool, also portraying the variant known as Nispool. Reynolds had originated the modern cinematic incarnation of the character in the 2016 film and its 2018 sequel, establishing a signature blend of rapid-fire fourth-wall breaks, crude humor, and physical comedy that defined the franchise. In this outing, he additionally took on writing and producing duties, shaping both the narrative and the tone. The character begins the story in a civilian phase, working as a used car salesman after the events of the previous films and the dissolution of his relationship with Vanessa. Reynolds' preparation involved extensive physical training under longtime coach Don Saladino, incorporating high-rep endurance work, sled drags, and early morning sessions to maintain the lean, athletic build required for the red and black suit, while accommodating a demanding production schedule that included strike-related interruptions. The performance demanded precise timing for the barrage of meta jokes aimed at Disney's acquisition of Fox, residual payments, and the MCU itself. Reynolds also performed the opening sequence set to NSYNC's Bye Bye, in which Deadpool desecrates the remains of the Wolverine from Logan and uses the adamantium bones as weapons. Professional dancer Nick Pauli, credited as Dancepool, handled the more intricate choreography, while Reynolds executed the combat and dialogue portions. Digital effects refined the mask's expressiveness so that micro expressions of affection, particularly in the Dogpool reunion, registered clearly despite the inverted V design that otherwise reads as permanently aggressive. Reynolds further appeared unmasked as Nispool, a long-haired, unscarred variant lacking a healing factor, credited under the pseudonym Gordon Reynolds. This dual role allowed him to contrast the scarred, regenerative anti-hero with a more conventionally handsome and less resilient counterpart, amplifying the film's exploration of identity across timelines. Hugh Jackman resumed the role of Logan Wolverine after previously declaring the character retired following Logan in 2017. The decision to return stemmed from a spontaneous conviction that the pairing with Deadpool felt inevitable. Jackman later described the realization as arriving like a bolt of lightning while driving. He contacted Reynolds directly before informing his agents. The version of Wolverine featured is a variant from a timeline in which he failed to protect the X-Men, resulting in their deaths and his subsequent self-loathing. This backstory justified the classic yellow and blue comic accurate costume, which Jackman wears as a form of penance rather than pride. The suit itself became a visual and thematic focal point, allowing Jackman to explore previously unseen textures of regret and reluctant heroism. Physically, Jackman trained to reclaim the muscular density associated with the character, emphasizing both power and agility for sequences that included claw-based combat and moments of raw animalistic movement. The chemistry with Reynolds rested on their real-life friendship and a deliberately quarrelsome dynamic. Deadpool's relentless verbal assault meets Wolverine's brooding silence, generating both comedy and gradual emotional thawing. Jackman has since indicated he will continue in the role until he's 90, treating any future successor with the same hands-off approach he himself received when first cast. The performance therefore functions both as a continuation of 2 decades of prior work and as a deliberate redefinition of the character within the multiversal framework of the MCU. Emma Corrin portrayed Cassandra Nova, the telepathic twin sister of Charles Xavier, and the primary antagonist operating from the Void Corrin, known for the Golden Globe winning turn as Princess Diana in The Crown and subsequent roles in Lady Chatterley's Lover and My Policeman, was approached after director Sean Levy attended one of their stage performances. Levy and Reynolds sought an actor capable of holding the screen against the two established leads while delivering a villain who could shift unpredictably between charm and lethality. Corrin's interpretation drew inspiration from Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka and Christoph Waltz's Hans Landa, creating a figure who is at once endearing and suddenly lethal. The character's design retained the bald head of the comics while adding elongated prosthetic fingers to emphasize the tactile nature of her psychic assaults, which involve literally inserting digits into victims' brains. Costuming featured a high-collared beige jacket, crisp white shirt, high-waisted trousers, and riding boots that Corrin described as conferring a sense of power. Cassandra rules a collection of discarded variants in the Void, including returning X-Men antagonists, and her goal centers on the destruction of timelines via a device known as the Time Ripper. Corrin has expressed interest in revisiting the character, noting that her story feels incomplete and half-jokingly proposing a sibling comedy with Professor X. The performance stands as the first live-action depiction of Cassandra Nova and anchors the film's larger themes of discarded histories and multiversal detritus. Matthew Macfadyen played Mr. Paradox, a mid-level TVA functionary whose bureaucratic ambition drives much of the early plot. Fresh from Emmy-winning work as Tom Wormsgans on Succession, Macfadyen brought a similar mix of oily charm, quiet resentment, and managerial frustration to the role. Paradox operates as a variant of Mobius M. Mobius from the comics and the Low Key series. Though the film never explicitly links the two performances, his scheme involves accelerating the decay of Deadpool's timeline, whose anchor being Wolverine has died, by means of a time ripper, while offering Wade a place in the sacred timeline as a lure. Macfadyen has described Paradox not as a conventional supervillain, but as an apparatchik frustrated by the mundanity of timeline monitoring and envious of more dramatic figures such as Cassandra Nova. The character's British accent, retained from Macfadyen's natural speech rather than the American inflection of Tom Wormsgans, underscored a chilly institutional authority. Scenes opposite Reynolds allowed Macfadyen to deliver exposition laced with passive-aggressive menace. While later confrontations revealed the limits of Paradox's competence once larger forces intervene. The casting leveraged Macfadyen's proven ability to humanize institutional self-interest, making the TVA's internal politics feel continuous with the corporate machinations of Succession. Daphne Keane returned as Laura X-23, the clone daughter of Wolverine first introduced in Logan. Keane, who was a child during the earlier film, now portrayed a more mature iteration of the character living in the void as part of a resistance group. Her presence provided both emotional continuity with Jackman's previous work and a generational bridge within the mutant continuum. Keane's physical performance retained the feral intensity of the original while incorporating greater tactical awareness, reflecting the years Laura has spent surviving without her father. Jon Favreau appeared briefly as Happy Hogan, Iron Man's longtime associate, in an early sequence that underscores Deadpool's unsuccessful attempt to join the Avengers. The cameo served as a tonal bridge between the Fox and MCU eras, allowing Favreau's dry managerial demeanor to bounce off Reynolds' irreverence. Morena Baccarin resumed the role of Vanessa Carlisle, Deadpool's former partner. Baccarin's performance centered on the unresolved emotional residue of their separation, providing the film's primary interpersonal stakes outside the multiversal chaos. Her scenes with Reynolds balanced sharp banter with genuine vulnerability, grounding the otherwise anarchic narrative. Rob Delaney returned as Peter, the civilian friend whose ordinary life offers comic contrast to the superhero violence. Delaney's timing and everyman exasperation remained consistent with earlier appearances, reinforcing the found family dynamic surrounding Wade. Leslie Uggams once again played Blind Al, Deadpool's acerbic, visually impaired roommate. Uggams' delivery of deadpan insults and maternal concern continued to serve as a reliable source of grounded humor amid the escalating spectacle. Jennifer Garner reprised Elektra Natchios from the 2003 Daredevil and 2005 Elektra films. Garner's appearance as part of the Void Resistance group marked a long-awaited return to a role that had previously been critically dismissed. The performance updated the character's combat proficiency with the pair of sei, while allowing meta-commentary on the truncated nature of her earlier franchise. Wesley Snipes returned as Blade, the half-vampire daywalker from the late 1990s and early 2000s trilogy. Snipes' presence carried particular weight given that he had co-starred with Reynolds in Blade Trinity. His line acknowledging that there would be only one Blade functioned as both character assertion and industry commentary on the long-delayed MCU reboot. Physically, Snipes retained the imposing presence and martial precision associated with the role, integrating seamlessly into the ensemble fight sequences. Channing Tatum finally portrayed Remy LeBeau Gambit, a character he had been attached to play in a standalone film that never materialized after the Disney-Fox merger. Tatum leaned into an exaggerated Cajun accent and kinetic card-throwing powers, delivering a performance that mixed fan service fulfillment with self-aware humor about the years of unfulfilled expectation. The costume and staff matched comic designs more closely than previous live-action attempts, and Tatum's physical comedy complemented the broader ensemble. Chris Evans appeared as Johnny Storm Human Torch from the 2005 and 2007 Fantastic Four films rather than as Captain America. The bait and switch, complete with the Avengers theme cue, generated one of the film's most widely discussed moments. Evans's return to the flame-on persona after nearly 2 decades allowed him to revisit a lighter, more flamboyant heroism while participating in the Void Resistance. Henry Cavill made a brief but memorable appearance as a hyper-muscular Wolverine variant dubbed the Cavillion. The cameo played on long-standing fan casting discussions and provided a visual joke about the extremes of comic book musculature. Cavill's silent, imposing presence contrasted with Jackman's more emotionally layered tech. Wunmi Mosaku returned from the Loki series as Hunter B-15, reinforcing the TVA's institutional continuity. Her authoritative presence underscored the bureaucratic machinery that Paradox attempts to subvert. Aaron Stanford reappeared as Pyro, the fire-wielding mutant previously seen in X2 and X-Men. The Last Stand. Stanford's performance updated the character for the Void setting, aligning him with Cassandra Nova's forces. Tyler Mane resumed the role of Sabretooth from the 2000 X-Men film, bringing the same raw physicality and feral antagonism that defined the earlier portrayal. Karan Soni returned as Dopinder, the taxi driver whose idolization of Deadpool continues to provide comic relief and occasional logistical support. Brianna Hildebrand and Shioli Kutsuna reprised Negasonic Teenage Warhead and Yukio respectively. Their relationship and explosive mutant abilities remained intact, offering continuity with the X-Force elements of the previous film. Stefan Kapicic provided the voice of Colossus, maintaining the character's earnest Russian accent and metallic physicality through motion capture and vocal performance. Lewis Tan returned as Shatterstar, the sword-wielding X-Force member, while Randall Reeder appeared again as Buck, a figure from Wade's mercenary past. Voice work expanded the Deadpool core. Blake Lively voiced Deadpool. Inez Reynolds, Ryan's daughter, voiced Kidpool. Nathan Fillion voiced Headpool, and Matthew McConaughey voiced Cowboy Pool. These variants populated the multiversal sequences and reinforced the film's theme of infinite iterations of the same core identity. Supporting players filled out the TVA and civilian worlds. Sonita Henry, Ryan Macken, Nanak Flora, and Aydin Ahmed portrayed the Chipman family, whose brief encounter with the title characters generates one of the film's more grounded observational jokes. Lemore Merritt Jr. appeared as a Minuteman leader, James Dryden as a TVA tech, and additional performers rounded out the ranks of soldiers, bartenders, and outpost personnel. Uncredited appearances included various mutants from earlier Fox films: Fim Quill, the Russian Azazel, Toad, Bullseye, Arclight, Lady Deathstrike, and others, populating the void as discarded remnants of prior continuity. The collective casting strategy deliberately assembled performers from across the Fox Marvel era, the New Line Blade trilogy, and the established MCU. creating a living archive of 2 decades of superhero cinema. Each return or debut carried specific historical weight. Jackman's post-retirement redefinition, Tatum's long-delayed fulfillment, Evans' franchise switch, Snipes' assertion of legacy, Garner's reclamation of a dismissed property, and Corrin's introduction of a previously unseen comic antagonist. Reynolds' dual performance and producing role bound these elements together, ensuring that the humor, physicality, and emotional undercurrents remained consistent with the franchise's established voice while expanding its multiversal scope. The result was a roster that functioned simultaneously as fan service, spectacle, narrative engine, and meta commentary on the consolidation of intellectual property under a single corporate umbrella. Production, development, and pre-production. The road to Deadpool and Wolverine stretched back nearly 8 years before the film finally reached theaters, winding through 2 different studios. Multiple abandoned concepts and one of the most consequential corporate mergers in modern Hollywood history. In the immediate aftermath of the original Deadpool surprise, 2016 success, 20th Century Fox moved quickly to develop follow-ups with plans for a sequel that would introduce the mutant strike team X-Force. Director Tim Miller, who had shepherded the first film to the screen, opted not to continue with the franchise because of creative disagreements with star Ryan Reynolds, opening the door for David Leitch to take over directing duties on what became Deadpool 2 in 2018. Fox still needed someone to steer a third installment, and writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, who had scripted the first 2 films, said in early 2017 that X-Force would be seeded in the second film before spinning off into its own separate project, leaving the third Deadpool film freer to pursue a more personal, character-driven story. Everything shifted when Disney announced its intention to acquire 21st Century Fox at the end of 2017. Disney CEO Bob Iger indicated that Reynolds' foul-mouthed anti-hero would eventually be folded into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a notable statement given that the mainline MCU films were rated PG-13, while the Deadpool pictures had always carried an R rating. Iger suggested Disney would be willing to keep making R-rated Deadpool films as long as audiences were clearly warned about the content, floating the idea of a distinct Marveler label for characters like Deadpool. Amid the uncertainty of the looming sale, Reynolds admitted in mid-2018 that a third Deadpool film might not happen at all, given the studio's redirected focus toward X-Force. Reese and Wernick offered a more optimistic timeline, suggesting a third film would surface once Reynolds had taken a breather from the role and the X-Force project had been released, drawing a comparison to how the Avengers had been positioned between Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3 in the MCU's own rollout. By the end of May 2018, Leitch signaled openness to returning for another entry, contingent on his availability, and reports that August indicated a third film was in active development, with production expected to relocate from Vancouver, the home base for the first 2 films, to Atlanta, Georgia. That same year, a PG-13 cut of the sequel titled Once Upon a Deadpool was released as a novelty holiday offering, and Disney and Marvel Studios reportedly watched its reception closely as a signal for how they might eventually handle the character once the MCU absorbed him. While promoting that re-edited version, Reynolds confirmed a third film was indeed being developed and promised it would head in a completely different direction from its predecessors. He later revealed that one avenue under consideration was a road trip movie inspired by the structure of Akira Kurosawa's Rashomon, which would have brought in Hugh Jackman's Fox continuity version of Wolverine, Karan Soni, who played the cab driver Dopinder in the first two films, corroborated this account and added that the story would have involved Deadpool attempting to save Christmas via a journey to the North Pole. For his part, Jackman had privately imagined a buddy movie pairing with Reynolds modeled on the 1982 action comedy 48 Essays as far back as a 2016 screening of the original Deadpool. Though he had already announced his retirement from the role of Wolverine following 2017's Logan, Disney's acquisition of Fox formally closed in March 2019, transferring the film rights to Deadpool, the X-Men, and a host of other Marvel properties to Marvel Studios. While the various Marvel adjacent projects Fox had been developing were placed on indefinite hold, actor Josh Brolin, who had portrayed the time-traveling mercenary Cable in Deadpool 2 and also played Thanos in the mainline MCU, mentioned in mid-2019 that he had begun conversations with Marvel Studios about his character's future. While Zazie Beetz said that fall she would be surprised if she didn't reprise her role as the luck-manipulating mutant Domino, though she ultimately did not return for the third film. Reese and Wernick described themselves and Reynolds as taking a well-earned break from the franchise while awaiting direction from their new corporate home, confirming only that another film would happen, that it would remain R-rated, and that it would be integrated into the MCU. Wernick nodded. There had never really been a settled pitch for a third film amid the exhaustion following the second and the chaos of the Fox sale, while Reese expressed confidence that once they landed on the right concept, the production would move quickly. Reynolds announced he was meeting directly with Marvel Studios in October 2019. At the time, studio president Kevin Feige was still wrestling with how or whether to weave Deadpool, the X-Men, and mutants generally into the shared universe he oversaw. He later described Reynolds as an idea machine during this period, someone who threw out a wide range of possible directions for the film. These included a scaled-down independent film-style road trip featuring Deadpool and Dopine, and a concept built around a dance sequence involving Wolverine set to Elton John's "I Guess That's Why They Call It the Blues." Reynolds also revived his earlier Rashomon-inspired team-up pitch, only to be told that including Wolverine in any form was not yet feasible. By December 2019, Reynolds indicated that a full creative team was actively developing a Deadpool film at Marvel Studios. Throughout October 2020, Reynolds and the studio interviewed prospective writers, eventually settling on sisters Wendy Molyneux and Lizzie Molyneux-Logelin, whose pitch meshed well with what Reynolds and Marvel were hoping to achieve. They were formally brought on the following month. There was also interest in having David Leitch return to direct, and he did meet with the team about the possibility, but scheduling conflicts ruled him out. It was while shooting the Adam Project in 2022 with director Sean Levy that Reynolds first broached the idea of collaborating on the next Deadpool film, and Levy responded enthusiastically. Around this same period, Feige noted in January 2021 that Reynolds was personally overseeing the writing process and that his demanding schedule meant cameras would not roll until sometime after 2021. It was also around 2020 or 2021 that Reynolds conceived of an action sequence built around Madonna's Like a Prayer, an idea originally intended to follow the death of the X-Man Colossus and to serve as an emotional catalyst for Deadpool after hitting a personal low point in mid-2021. Reynolds and Taika Waititi, both promoting Levy's Free Guy, appeared in character as Deadpool and Cog in a viral promotional shot in which the two Marvel characters discussed Deadpool potentially joining the MCU, a piece of stealth marketing that doubled as an early signal of the character's coming integration. That August, Feige confirmed that filming would commence in 2022 and that the studio had a release window already in mind. By November, both Beats and Rob Delaney expressed a desire to reprise their Deadpool 2 roles as Domino and Peter Wisdom respectively, though only Delaney ultimately returned. Levy's hiring as director was made official in March 2022, alongside word that filming would be delayed until after that year due to his existing commitments. Reese and Wernick returned to rewrite the screenplay, expressing enthusiasm about incorporating specific MCU elements and noting that Disney and Marvel had shown a willingness to let Deadpool poke fun at the MCU itself, a trust earned by the commercial success of the earlier films. Production designer Raymond Chan, fresh off work on the Disney Plus series The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, joined the crew that June. The following month, Feige suggested the new film would represent a step up in ambition and craft compared to the first two entries, drawing comparisons to how prior third installments in MCU franchises, Captain America, Civil War, Thor, Ragnarok, and Avengers Infinity War, had each elevated their respective series. Levy, Reynolds, Reese, Wernick, and writer Zeb Wells, who had previously contributed to She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, the animated series Marvel Zombies, and The Marvels, all struggled for a time to find a story that didn't feel like a rehash of the earlier Deadpool films. Levy has said, the team felt any new MCU set Deadpool film needed to feel deserving of its place in that larger universe, while still remaining true to the grounded, gritty tone that had defined the character on screen. He and Reynolds were reportedly prepared to tell Feige they might not be able to proceed given how much trouble they were having nailing down a workable premise, and executive producer Wendy Jacobson later confirmed that Marvel itself was similarly stuck on a core story idea. The turning point came in August 2022 when Jackman reached out to Reynolds expressing interest in being part of the project. Reynolds, who was gearing up for a meeting with Feige to discuss their lack of forward momentum, quickly recognized that bringing Wolverine into the mix could resolve many of the storytelling problems the team had been facing. Jackman, who had spent several years feeling at peace with retiring the role, found himself reconsidering, later saying, the prospect of teaming up with Reynolds sounded like it could be more fun than anything he had done in his career. Feige initially cautioned Jackman against returning, feeling that Wolverine's death in Logan represented one of the finest character send-offs in film history and worrying about undercutting it. Jackman was ultimately persuaded, once the idea crystallized, that he would be playing an alternate universe variant of Wolverine rather than resurrecting the character from Logan. And after taking time to think it over during a long drive, he confirmed he wanted back in. Reynolds publicly announced Jackman's return in September 2022, with the film initially targeted for a September 6, 2024 release. Alongside Feige and longtime X-Men franchise producer Lawrence Schuler Donner, Reynolds and Levy served as producers through their respective companies, Maximum Effort and 21 Laps Entertainment. Simon Kinberg, a producer on the earlier Deadpool films, stayed on as an executive producer and later remarked that the project had effectively been authored collectively by Levy, Reynolds, and Feige, all of whom cared deeply about the characters of Logan, Deadpool, and Wolverine. Both Reynolds and Jackman were careful to stress publicly that the new film's multiversal storyline would not retroactively alter or diminish the events of Logan, a priority Levy has repeatedly called paramount for the creative team. He has also said that the accumulated legacies of both Deadpool and Wolverine as characters directly shape the story and its themes. Jackman personally reached out to Logan director James Mangold to walk him through the plan, finding Mangold both enthusiastic about the new film and relieved that his own film's ending would remain intact. For a long stretch, the project didn't even have a settled title, with Jackman, Reynolds, and Levy referring to it at various points as the Deadpool Wolverine film, Wolverine and Deadpool, Deadpool versus Wolverine, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Deadpool 3 with Wolverine. A joke title, Deadpool and Friend, leaked online in February 2024 and was claimed by Reynolds to be official, but a negative fan reaction led the studio to unveil the real title, Deadpool and Wolverine, the very next day. Levy explained that he resisted calling it Deadpool 3 outright because he considered it fundamentally a two-character team-up adventure rather than a straightforward continuation of the Deadpool series alone. Reynolds, meanwhile, insisted the film remained thoroughly a Deadpool movie in spirit, promising violence, profanity, and what he called meta mayhem, and went so far as to brand it the most Deadpool movie in the history of Deadpool. Budget reporting around the film shifted considerably over time. Early trade coverage pegged the production budget at roughly $200 million. However, tax filings released by Disney in 2025 revealed that the true final cost had significantly exceeded that figure, coming in at a gross cost of $533. $7 million and a net cost of $429 million. Once tax credits were factored in, numbers that placed the film among the most expensive ever produced. Much of that cost escalation stemmed from disruptions tied to the industry-wide labor disputes of 2023. Pre-production got underway by October 2022. Remarkably fast turnaround of under 2 months from Jackman's decision to return, something executive producer Wendy Jacobson described as among the quickest ramp-ups she had witnessed for a production of this scale. The planned release date was pushed to November 8, 2024 to accommodate scheduling conflicts with other MCU releases, and by December, Levy confirmed cameras would begin rolling in May 2023. Reynolds had lobbied for filming to take place in Vancouver, his hometown, and the site of the earlier film's production, but ultimately deferred to Marvel's established infrastructure elsewhere. By February 2020, London had been confirmed as a filming location. That same month, Patrick Stewart, who had played Charles Xavier across the X-Men franchise and reprised the role in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, revealed he had been approached about a possible appearance, though Levy later stated definitively that no such plans had ever existed. Emma Corrin also joined the cast that February in what was described as a lead villain role. Marvel had been eyeing Corrin since late 2022 after Levy saw their stage performance in an adaptation of Virginia Woolf's Orlando, though scheduling hurdles delayed the final signing. March 2023 brought reports that the Time Variance Authority and other elements from the Disney Plus series Loki would factor into the story, and Matthew Macfadyen joined the cast in an undisclosed role later described as functioning as a kind of third wheel to the central duo. In the run-up to filming, the production also locked in several returning cast members from the earlier Deadpool films, including Karan Soni as Dopinder, Leslie Uggams as Blind Owl, Morena Baccarin as Vanessa Carlisle, Stefan Kapicic voicing Colossus, Rob Delaney as Peter Wisdom, Brianna Hildebrand as Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and Shioli Kutsuna as Yukio. Levy has spoken warmly of the development process, calling it one of the more purely enjoyable creative experiences of his career, thanks to the film's self-aware humor, violence, and profanity. He resisted the idea of softening the franchise's established tone, describing the finished product as raw and audacious, drawing comparisons to buddy comedies like 48HS Planes, Trains and Automobiles, and Midnight Run. Sony echoed this, noting the film fully leaned into its MCU setting, including jokes aimed squarely at Feige himself. Only one line in the finished script drew a direct request for revision from Disney. A joke that originally referenced Mickey Mouse in vulgar terms was rewritten to instead reference Pinocchio, preserving the crude spirit of the gag, while sidestepping direct use of Disney's most iconic mascot. Costume design fell to Graham Churchyard and Maisie Rubio, both veterans of prior MCU productions. Jackman's Wolverine costume in the film draws heavily on the character's yellow and blue design from X-Men, the animated series, and the comics, particularly the look established in the 2004-2013 astonishing X-Men run illustrated by John Cassaday, while also incorporating design touches from both the 1970s Wolverine look created by John Romita Sr. and Dave Cockrum, and the 1990s redesign associated with Jim Lee notably. Jackman had never worn a comics accurate costume across his many appearances in the X-Men film series, save for a brief visual reference in the original 2000 film and a deleted scene from 2013's The Wolverine, making this the character's first true comic-style costume on screen. Levy considered this possibly the last opportunity for Jackman to wear such a suit, and the team went through numerous fittings and design iterations before landing on the final look. Jackman has said that putting it on felt immediately and unmistakably right, prompting him to wonder why it hadn't happened sooner. Early images of the costume drew enthusiastic reactions online and led some observers to conclude Jackman was playing a meaningfully different iteration of the character than the one from his prior films. Reynolds' Deadpool suit was likewise refreshed, featuring a brighter red and larger black eye patches on the mask reminiscent of 1990s comic book designs. Principal photography began on May 22, 2023 in London and at Pinewood Studios in Buckinghamshire under the working title Tidal Wave. George Richmond, who had worked with both Levy and Reynolds on Free Guy, served as cinematographer, while George Cottle took on dual duties as supervising stunt coordinator and second unit director. Because filming was expected to overlap with production on the final season of Stranger Things, on which Levy also served as an executive producer, the schedules for both projects had to be carefully coordinated by Marvel Studios and the Netflix series producers. The 2023 Writers Guild of America strike, which began that May, was not expected to significantly disrupt production, aside from preventing Reynolds from making on-set script contributions during filming, as he had for the earlier films. Marvel planned to shoot as much usable footage as possible and handle any necessary rewrites during scheduled reshoots. The filmmakers deliberately prioritized location shooting over soundstage work wherever feasible, feeling it gave the film a more grounded, tactile quality. By mid-June, the planned release date had moved up to May 3, 2024. A car crash sequence was filmed in London in early July 2023, followed shortly by scenes shot with Reynolds and Jackman in Norfolk. Production came to an abrupt halt on July 14 due to the onset of the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike, by which point the crew had completed 35 days of filming, with another 35 still remaining. Baccarin had already wrapped all of her scenes prior to the shutdown. During the hiatus, Disney elected to keep the standing sets intact rather than dismantle them, and Levy and Reynolds used the downtime to begin work on editing and visual effects, even though major effects heavy sequences had not yet been prioritized for filming before the strike began. Levy has compared one of the film's key action beats to the lightsaber duel between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi, saying he directed the stunt team to study that scene's blocking, pacing, and framing as a reference point. Another major set piece, the sequence eventually set to Madonna's Like a Prayer, had by this point evolved to include Wolverine alongside Deadpool. Reynolds and Levy met personally with Madonna to secure permission to use the song, which she granted, along with a suggestion to pair it with a gospel choir arrangement. As one of several high-profile productions caught mid-shoot by the dueler strikes, the film was considered a priority to resume once the SAG-AFTRA strike concluded. In October 2023, with the strike still ongoing, Levy publicly questioned whether the film would still make its planned May 2024 release date, and reports soon followed, suggesting a delay was likely regardless of when filming resumed. Once the SAG-AFTRA strike ended on November 9, production was expected to pick back up in London within roughly 2 weeks ahead of the American Thanksgiving holiday. Around this time, Reynolds confirmed that the character Dogpool, played by a trained dog actor named Peggy, would appear in the film, and the release date shifted again, this time to July 26, 2024. Filming resumed by November 23. Levy later reflected that the extended time spent editing and reviewing existing footage during the strike gave him a clearer understanding of the film as a whole, allowing him to return to the set with sharper focus rather than feeling rushed. During this final filming stretch, Reynolds' Wrexham AFC co-chairman Rob McElhenney visited the set to shoot a cameo as a TVA agent, an appearance captured by the documentary series. Welcome to Wrexham, though the scene was ultimately cut from the finished film. At the end of December 2023, Bona Film Group struck a deal with TSG Entertainment to invest in a slate of films that included the Deadpool franchise, and both TSG and 20th Century Studios received in association with credits on the finished picture. Principal photography, which also made use of Bovingdon Film Studios, officially wrapped on January 24, 2024. A single additional day of filming took place afterward in Los Angeles to capture Jon Favreau's cameo as Happy Hogan and to shoot the film's opening dance sequence, choreographed by Nick Pauli. A United States Copyright Office filing later indicated that some additional filming had also occurred in Vancouver. During production, Jennifer Garner was reported to be reprising her role as Elektra Natchios from the Fox-produced Daredevil and its spin-off Elektra, though she initially denied the reports. Set photos also surfaced revealing appearances by Sabretooth and Toad, alongside a large prop featuring the old 20th Century Fox logo, prompting comparisons to how Spider-Man No Way Home had similarly reassembled actors from earlier non-MCU incarnations of its franchise. Levy addressed some of the swirling casting rumors, including widespread speculation that Taylor Swift would cameo as the mutant Dazzler, without confirming which rumors held any truth. Swift ultimately did not appear in the film, and Levy later stated there had never been any plans for her involvement. Regarding the returning legacy characters who did make the cut, including Aaron Stanford reprising his role as the pyrokinetic mutant Pyro from X2 and X-Men. The Last Stand Levy maintained that each was incorporated organically as the story took shape rather than forced in to satisfy a pre-existing wish list of nostalgic cameos. Reynolds, addressing the wave of set photo leaks, said they created real difficulties for the production and expressed hope that outlets would stop publishing unfinished, out of context images, while noting with some irony that the Deadpool franchise owed its very existence to an earlier leak, the test footage that convinced Fox to greenlight the first film. Levy, for his part, characterized the presence of paparazzi during location shooting as simply a cost of doing business when filming out in the open. The film's official copyright filing in February 2024 confirmed Garner's casting and revealed that Corrin would be playing Cassandra Nova, the twin sister of Charles Xavier. Interestingly, the writers had originally settled on the demonic Marvel Comics figure Mephisto, long the subject of MCU fan speculation, as the film's primary antagonist, before Jackman suggested pivoting to Cassandra Nova, given her direct thematic ties to Wolverine's history with Xavier. A wave of trailers over the following months revealed additional casting and character details, including McFadden's role as the TVA's Mr. Paradox, the returns of Randall Reeder and Louis Tan as Buck and Shatterstar from the earlier Deadpool films, the comeback of Stanford as Pyro and Tyler Maughan as Sabretooth from the X-Men series, and the inclusion of the Loki-derived creature Alioth. Not every attempted legacy cameo came together. Vinnie Jones and Jason Flemyng were approached to reprise their X-Men roles as Juggernaut and Azazel respectively, but deals could not be finalized. And talks with Terry Crews about returning as Bedlam from Deadpool 2 similarly went nowhere. Filming and post-production details, Dean Zimmerman, a frequent Levy collaborator, edited the film alongside Shane Reed. By late April 2024, Levy indicated the team was in the final stretch of completing the edit, with early test screenings already underway. Those screenings reportedly produced strong scores for both title characters individually and for their on-screen chemistry. As a pair, the film's climax underwent a notable last-minute change. Originally, the ending revealed immediately that Deadpool and Wolverine had survived their ordeal after sacrificing themselves to destroy the Time Ripper, but Reynolds' wife, actress Blake Lively, suggested leaving their fate ambiguous for a bit longer to heighten suspense. That revised version, including an emotionally charged speech from Paradox reacting to what appears to be the hero's sacrifice, was captured during a day and a half of reshoots, with Levy crediting Lively's note for making the ending land with greater emotional impact. Lively and several of the couple's children ended up contributing voice cameos as various Deadpool variants, a choice Levy attributed largely to their simple availability for recording sessions during that period. Young actor Walker Scobell, Reynolds' co-star from The Adam Project, was originally cast to voice the variant Kidpool, but his voice had changed too noticeably during puberty by the time recording wrapped, leading to his replacement by Reynolds' own daughter Inez. Scobell instead ended up voicing an unseen, ultimately cut Deadpool variant with a single crude line of dialogue. Reynolds initially recorded a temporary voice for the cowboy-themed variant, Cowboy Pool, before Matthew McConaughey agreed to take over the role. Any jokes referencing specific cast members' personal lives, including a scripted joke about Jennifer Garner's divorce from Ben Affleck and an improvised jab at Jackman's own divorce, were cleared with the actors in question ahead of inclusion. post-production work concluded on June 19, 2024. Despite weaving a dense multiverse narrative full of legacy characters, Levy has said he never expected or wanted audiences to need outside homework to enjoy the film, intending it to function as a satisfying, self-contained experience on its own terms. Reynolds echoed that Marvel never pressured the team to use the film purely to set up future projects, asking only for one fully realized standalone story. In July 2024, it was confirmed that Favreau and Wunmi Mosaku would reprise their respective MCU roles as Happy Hogan and TVA agent Hunter B-15. The writers had also hoped Robert Downey Jr. would return as Tony Stark alongside Favreau's Happy Hogan, but he declined the part after reading the scene, reportedly the only instance in which an actor turned down a role in the film. That same month, a final trailer confirmed Daphne Keene's return as Laura, also known as X-23 from Logan. Keene had previously denied any involvement while promoting the Star Wars series The Acolyte, and Marvel opted to reveal her casting publicly only after she personally asked to attend the premiere. Keene said she had enjoyed keeping the secret, drawing inspiration from how Andrew Garfield had similarly and famously denied his involvement in No Way Home prior to that film's release. The film's closing credits sequence functions as an extended tribute to the Fox-era Marvel films, celebrating and bidding farewell to that chapter of the franchise's screen history. Levy has said the overarching themes of legacy and narrative closure led directly to the inclusion of what he called a who's who of discarded Marvel characters, including Garner as Elektra, Wesley Snipes reprising his role as the vampire hunter Blade from New Line Cinema's Blade trilogy, Chris Evans returning as Johnny Storm from Fox's Fantastic Four films, and Channing Tatum finally portraying Gambit, a role he had long been attached to in an unproduced standalone film. The filmmakers felt that Snipes in particular had never received a fitting send-off as Blade. Snipes himself was surprised to be approached at all, having assumed his time with the character had ended once Marvel cast Mahershala Ali in the role for the MCU. Snipes and Reynolds had not stayed in close contact since co-starring in 2004's Blade Trinity, a shoot during which Snipes had reportedly struggled with Reynolds' sense of humor. But Snipes has said he came to appreciate Reynolds' comedic approach fully within the context of this new film, making the experience an enjoyable one. Because Marvel did not hold the legal rights to use Blade's signature black leather coat from the New Line films, an entirely new costume had to be designed for the character. Evans, for his part, agreed to return quickly, largely because of his enthusiasm for working with Reynolds. His introduction in the film is deliberately staged to trick audiences into initially believing he is reprising his Captain America role before the reveal that he is instead playing Johnny Storm, and his costume subtly blends design elements from both his Captain America and Human Torch outfits. For Evans's profanity-laden monologue in the post-credits scene, Reynolds offered him the option of using cue cards, but Evans chose to memorize the dialogue instead. Levy, who had once been among the directors Tatum approached about his unrealized Gambit project, recognized how meaningful it would be for Tatum to finally play the character in some form, and Tatum has expressed gratitude for being included after long, assuming he would never get the chance. An additional scene was filmed showing Tatum's Gambit surviving the events of the film, visible briefly on background TVA monitors during the post-credit sequence. Reynolds later released an extended version of that footage online as a tease toward the character's potential future. Other legacy characters were considered but ultimately did not make the film, including Ben Affleck reprising Matt Murdock from Daredevil and Elektra, Nicolas Cage as Ghost Rider from the Columbia Pictures films, and the principal cast of the 2015 Fantastic Four reboot: Miles Teller, Kate Mara, Michael B. Jordan, and Jamie Bell, who were passed over after the team concluded their inclusion would not carry the same impact as Evans's appearance. The writers also weighed bringing back Josh Brolin as Cable, but decided against it, reasoning that the film's tribute concept was meant for characters who never received a proper conclusion at Fox, and Cable had only just been introduced in Deadpool 2. Wernick has said he expects Cable to resurface in future Marvel projects regardless. Visual effects supervision fell to Sven Gilberg, with work distributed across Industrial Light and Magic, Framestore Base FX, Barnstorm VFX, Reynolds VFX, Rising Sun Pictures, and Veta FX. Framestore came aboard during pre-production for pre-visualization work and ultimately delivered 420 finished shots, contributing to the extended single-take style battle against an army of Deadpool variants, including environment work and digital crowd duplication. The climactic confrontation with Cassandra, Nova, and the Time Ripper device, using a spaghettification visual effect the studio had originally developed for the second season of Loki, and effects work bringing Dogpool to life, including digitally added googly-eyed goggles for the dog actor Peggy. ILM handled 6 and 14 shots, concentrating primarily on sequences set within the void. Because the production hiatus meant some scenes were shot in summer and others in winter, visual effects were relied upon to maintain a consistent wintry look throughout. The team also extended the set for Cassandra's arena to appear, built from the corpse of a giant Ant-Man, and for the sequence depicting Johnny Storm's gruesome death at Cassandra's hands, ILM consulted the bodies, the exhibition anatomical display as reference material, adding a small comedic beat of Johnny blinking just before his body collapses to keep the moment from becoming too grim. Both Framestore and ILM contributed to Cassandra's signature power of reaching her hand directly through other characters' faces, an effect inspired by original comic book artwork. Corrin was filmed with their arm concealed, so it could later be digitally replaced and made to interact convincingly with a digital double of the other performer. Veta FX, returning from its work on the first two Deadpool films, handled the facial animation for Deadpool's mask using the same two-dimensional morphing technique established previously, relying on reference footage provided by Reynolds and a newly developed machine learning tool that suggested plausible facial movements based on his recorded dialogue. Over the course of production, Veta's workload expanded to roughly 630 shots, including facial animation for Wolverine's mask, environment and skeletal augmentation for the film's opening sequence, TVA technology effects modeled on those seen in Loki, and additional environment work throughout the void. Blood and gore effects were added digitally across the production. Method Studios, returning from its earlier work on the opening sequence of Deadpool 2, collaborated with the other vendors on planning and executing the film's own opening sequence and its title cards. Music Rob Simonson was brought on to compose the film's original score by the middle of July 2023, having previously collaborated with Levy on The Adam Project and the fourth season of Stranger Things. A digital soundtrack album was released by Hollywood Records on July 24, 2024, with a physical edition following on July 26. It compiles 17 songs featured in or inspired by the film, alongside LFG, Simonson's principal musical theme for the picture, A companion album collecting Simonson's score was also released digitally on July 24 in both a standard and deluxe edition, with the deluxe version additionally folding in the songs from the separate soundtrack release. Given the prominent role Madonna's Like a Prayer plays in one of the film's signature action sequences, Warner Records issued a dedicated EP on August 9 titled Deadpool and Wolverine. Madonna's Like a Prayer EP, featuring the original recording alongside remixed versions used in the film, released theatrical Deadpool and Wolverine, held its premiere at the David H. Koch Theater in New York City on July 22, 2024. International rollout followed a staggered schedule. France, Germany, Italy, South Korea, and Japan received the film on July 24. Spain, Brazil, the United Kingdom, Mexico, and Australia followed on July 25, and the United States and China both saw release on July 26. The film arriving in IMAX, RealD 3D, Dolby Cinema, 4DX Cinemark XD, and various other premium large format presentations. As noted, the release date itself had a winding history, originally announced for September 6, 2024, before shifting to November 8 to work around other MCU release conflicts. Then moving up to May 3 amid Disney's broader release calendar adjustments prompted by the Writers Guild strike, before finally settling on its actual July 2024 date once the SAG-AFTRA strike concluded. The film formed part of Phase 5 of the MCU's ongoing rollout, and the Motion Picture Association classified it with an R rating, the first time a mainline MCU film had received that designation. In August 2024, Levy stated flatly that no director's cut would be forthcoming, explaining that the theatrical version represented exactly the film he had set out to make. Reynolds confirmed he had previously raised the idea of an extended cut with Levy, who turned the suggestion down. Marketing for the film began building well before its release, anchored by a teaser trailer that debuted during Super Bowl LVI in February 2024. Coverage of that spot noted it confirmed the film's R rating and teased Deadpool's infiltration of the broader MCU, while other commentators focused on a sexually explicit joke involving the practice of pegging, a first for the MCU, and speculated the film might explore queer themes more directly than prior Marvel productions. The trailer's brief use of imagery tied to the 2015 Secret Wars comic book event also drew attention, given Marvel Studios had by then already announced its own forthcoming Avengers Secret Wars film. Shortly after the Super Bowl spot aired, Jackman took a light-hearted jab at his co-star online, posting a modified version of the film's logo reading "Wolverine an asshole." The teaser itself proved to be an enormous marketing success, racking up 365 million global views within its first 24 hours, a total that included the 123 million Super Bowl viewers who caught a 30-second cut, surpassing the previous record held by Spider-Man No Way Home to become the most viewed trailer released within a single day. Reynolds and Jackman were subsequently presented with official Guinness World Records certificates commemorating the milestone during a televised interview on the British program This Morning. A Silence Your Phones public service announcement featuring the two characters opened Disney's presentation at CinemaCon in April 2024, during which Feige and Levy showed roughly 9 minutes of footage from the film to an audience reaction described by The Hollywood Reporter as drawing the loudest laughs of the entire event. That footage incorporated repurposed archival material from Thor: The Dark World, showing Chris Hemsworth's Thor mourning what appears to be Deadpool's death rather than Loki, as in the scene's original context. The PSA itself was later released to the general public. An official trailer set to Madonna's Like a Prayer arrived on April 27, and a subsequent trailer released May 20 announced the opening of ticket pre-sales, while including a QR code linking to a video of Reynolds reading a mock legal disclaimer for the film. Late that same month, Marvel unveiled a deliberately crude and lewd promotional popcorn bucket, an idea Feige had teased in advance, and one clearly inspired by the earlier viral popcorn bucket created for Dune Part 2, shaped like Wolverine's head with an oversized, exaggerated mouth to hold popcorn. The bucket's reveal video was set to the famous Also Sprach Zarathustra fanfare associated with 2001 A Space Odyssey, depicting Deadpool interacting suggestively with the bucket as popcorn and butter spilled from its mouth and nose. A teaser released in early June 2024 confirmed the appearance of a character called Ladypool, sparking speculation about casting that was soon resolved with the reveal that Blake Lively had voiced the role. Later that month, Reynolds appeared in character in a characteristically irreverent video at the Cineeurope Industry Convention to introduce roughly 12 minutes of footage. The principal cast then embarked on a global promotional tour beginning in early July with stops in Shanghai, where Reynolds, Jackman and Levy screened 35 minutes of footage for fans, Seoul, where the trio appeared at the 2024 Waterbomb Festival, Berlin, where they were joined by Corrin, and attended a Euro 2024 quarterfinal match between the Netherlands and Turkey, London, where the group expanded to include Delaney, Peggy the dog actor, and executive producers Louis Desposito and Wendy Jacobson, and Rio de Janeiro, where the cast visited the famed Maracanã Stadium to coincide with the London leg of the tour. The British entertainment retailer HMV temporarily swapped its iconic dog mascot logo for an image of Dog Paul at one of its storefronts. The marketing push extended well beyond conventional trailers and press tours. Deadpool and Wolverine appeared in a promotional advertisement for the reality dating show The Bachelorette during its 21st season premiere on July 8, an effort clearly aimed at courting that program's predominantly female 1849 demographic. Reynolds also promoted the crossover on social media. On July 19, the characters appeared in a music video for the South Korean boy band Stray Kids' single Chke Chke Boom, tying into the group's separately featured song Slash on the film's soundtrack. Reynolds, an investor in the Alpine Formula One team, helped orchestrate a special Deadpool and Wolverine themed livery for the team's car at the 2024 Belgian Grand Prix, unveiled on July 24. The following day, Reynolds, Jackman, Levy, Corrin, and Feige screened the film for a packed audience at San Diego Comic-Con, an event that opened with a video introduction from Leslie Uggams, reprising her role as Blind Al, and closed with Reynolds bringing out the major surprise cameo actors Keen, Garner Evans, Tatum, and Snipes to the crowd's delight. A drone light show featuring imagery of the two title characters followed at nearby Petco Park. That same week, an episode of the revived television game show Press Your Luck featured the characters taking over the show's mascot, the Wami, and in the days following the film's actual release, the pop group NSYNC updated the official title of their music video for Bye, Bye, Bye to explicitly credit its renewed popularity to its prominent placement in the film's opening credits. Disney's overall promotional spend on the film reached an estimated $135 million, funding an extensive slate of brand partnerships alongside maximum effort that included Reynolds' own aviation gin, Heineken, DiGiorno, Jack in the Box, Tim Hortons, Super X, Hot Top, Homage, Xbox, Adidas, Casio, Dave and Buster's, Best Friends, Animal Society, Coca-Cola, Android, Old Spice, Turner Classic Movies, and National Geographic. Collectible manufacturers Funko and Hot Toys both produced dedicated action figures tied to the film, and Funko additionally allowed San Diego Comic-Con attendees to customize personalized versions of the Deadpool and Wolverine Funko Pop figures on site. Marvel Comics further supported the release with a wave of variant comic book covers featuring production stills and promotional imagery in August, followed by a second wave featuring the film's concept art in December. Home media Deadpool and Wolverine became available for digital download on October 1, 2024, followed by physical releases on Ultra HD Blu-ray, Standard Blu-ray and DVD on October 22. These home entertainment editions included a collection of deleted scenes, a gag reel, an audio commentary track featuring Levy and Reynolds, and several behind-the-scenes featurettes covering topics such as the making of the Like a Prayer fight sequence, the film's numerous major cameos, Jackman's return to the role of Wolverine, and a heartfelt tribute to production designer Ray Chan, who died in April 2024 during the film's post-production period. The film went on to post the biggest first-week performance for an R-rated title on US digital platforms, surpassing the previous record set by 2023's John Wick. Chapter 4. It subsequently arrived on Disney Plus on November 12, 2024, where Disney reported 19.4 million global views within its first 6 days, figures that made it the most watched live-action film on the platform since Black Panther: Wakanda Forever had debuted there in early 2023. According to Nielsen Media Research, which tracks streaming viewership, specifically on US television screens, the film became the most streamed title in the country during its first 2 weeks of Disney Plus availability, logging 134 billion minutes viewed in its first week alone and an additional 586 million minutes in its second. Reception box office Deadpool and Wolverine grossed $636. 7 million across the United States and Canada and 701.3 million internationally, for a worldwide total of $1.338 billion. Within just 23 days of release, it overtook 2019's Joker to become the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. By the conclusion of its theatrical run, it also stood as the 5th highest grossing film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe overall and the 20th highest grossing film ever made at the time of its release. Deadline Hollywood calculated the film's net profit at approximately $400 million, ranking it the third most profitable film of 2024 once the reported production budget, marketing expenses, and other costs were weighed against combined box office, television, streaming, and home media revenue. Working from the higher tax filing derived net production budget of $429 million, a Forbes analysis instead estimated a comparatively narrower box office profit of $241 million, a figure that notably excluded marketing costs as well as revenue generated through streaming, home media sales, and merchandise. Anticipation ahead of release was substantial by any measure. Ticket vendor Fandango reported that pre-sales for the film represented its best performance for any release in 2024 and for any R-rated film in the company's history, while AMC Theatres reported roughly 200,000 first-day ticket sales, the highest total the chain had ever recorded for an R-rated release. Industry analyst Pamela McClintock of The Hollywood Reporter had predicted well ahead of release that the film would open above $100 million domestically, a benchmark no other 2024 release had managed to that point. formal tracking services projected a domestic opening in the range of $160 to $165 million and a worldwide opening between $340 and $360 million. Estimates that specifically accounted for strong observed walk-up ticket buying among Latino and Hispanic moviegoers on recent comparable releases. Those projections proved conservative once the film actually opened. On its first day in the United States and Canada, the film earned $96 million, including $38. $5 million from Thursday night preview screenings, both figures setting new records for an R-rated release. The film went on to significantly exceed even the higher end of its opening weekend projections, pulling in $211.4 million domestically and $444.6 million worldwide, marking both the biggest opening weekend ever for an R-rated film and the single biggest opening weekend of any film released in 2024. It also ranked as the sixth biggest domestic opening weekend of all time up to that point. The film recouped its officially reported production budget within just 2 days of release. After 3 days in theaters, it had already become the highest grossing R-rated film ever released by Disney, eclipsing the studio's previous record holder in that category, 1990's Pretty Woman. Over the following week, it continued setting single-day domestic records for an R-rated film, earning $24.4 million on a Monday, $25.3 million on a Tuesday, $19, $3 million on a Wednesday, and $18 million on a non-preview Thursday. The film held the top spot at the domestic box office for a second consecutive weekend, adding another $97 million, and crossed the $1 billion mark worldwide during its third weekend of release, becoming only the second film to reach that threshold in 2024. That same weekend also saw Reynolds' film and Blake Lively's It Ends With Us occupy the top two positions at the domestic box office simultaneously, a feat not achieved by a married Hollywood couple's respective films since Bruce Willis's Die Hard 2 and Demi Moore's Ghost both topped the charts in 1990. The film was finally dislodged from the domestic top spot in its fourth weekend by the horror film newcomer Alien Romulus, but it returned to the number one position for both its fifth and sixth weekends of release. It remained within the domestic top 10 for 11 consecutive weeks total, ultimately closing out its theatrical run as the second highest grossing film of 2024 worldwide, trailing only Pixar's Inside Out 2, and as the 20th highest grossing film ever released at that point. Outside the United States and Canada, its strongest performing territories were the United Kingdom with $73.8 million, China with $59.7 million, Australia with $44.5 million, Mexico with $43.5 million, and Germany with $40.7 million. Critical response, critical reaction to Deadpool and Wolverine settled into a fairly consistent pattern. Broader praise for the central performances of Reynolds and Jackman, and for the film's comedic energy, paired with more muted or mixed enthusiasm for the picture as a complete work. On the review aggregation site Rotten Tomatoes, the film held a 77% approval rating based on 421 collected reviews, with an average score of 6.9 out of 10. The site's official critical consensus praised Reynolds for settling comfortably into the MCU with his characteristic sharp wit, while crediting Jackman with providing the emotional backbone of the picture, and describing the overall film as an irreverent romp carrying an unexpected fondness for an earlier era of superhero cinema. Metacritic, which calculates scores using a weighted average methodology, assigned the film a 56 out of 100 based on 58 critics, a result the site classifies as indicating mixed or average reviews. Audience response skewed considerably more positive than critical response. Polling firm CinemaScore recorded an average grade of A from opening weekend moviegoers, matching the scores earned by the first two Deadpool films, while the survey service PostTrack found 96% of respondents gave the film a positive rating and 85% said they would definitely recommend it to others. Among individual reviews, Deadline, Hollywood's Pete Hammond wrote that the central pairing of the two title characters exceeded even the most optimistic expectations for an on-screen team-up and singled out Jackman's performance as the finest work he had done in the role of Wolverine across his entire tenure with the character. At Empire magazine, critic Ollie Richards similarly praised Jackman, arguing the actor elevated key moments of the material and managed to deliver a genuinely moving character arc despite the film's relentless stream of crude humor. Richards also responded favorably to the film's decision to prioritize its title characters and the audience's immediate viewing experience over heavy-handed setup for future MCU installments. Writing for RogerEbert.com, critic Matt Zoller Seitz awarded the film 2.5 stars out of 4, praising both lead performances as convincingly portraying broken, emotionally abandoned men, and noted he found himself surprisingly invested in the characters' fates during the film's emotionally charged climax. At Collider, Ross Bonham argued the character of Deadpool was finally able to reach his full creative potential once folded into the larger MCU framework, while observing that Jackman's Wolverine was allowed to be considerably more brutal on screen now than in any of his prior appearances. The Associated Press's Christopher Rea found the central relationship between the two leads, by turns adversarial and tinged with homoerotic undertones, to be one of the film's more compelling elements, while San Francisco Chronicle critic Mick LaSalle praised the tonal contrast the film achieved by pairing Jackman's committed, straight-faced performance against Reynolds' comedic instincts. Other reviewers offered similarly favorable, if qualified, assessments. Dominic Perez of the Seattle Times described the film as pure, unadulterated fun and framed it as a genuine love letter to longtime Marvel fans. CNN critic Brian Lowry pointed to the film as evidence of Marvel Studios' growing willingness to engage in genuine self-deprecation regarding its own creative missteps and franchise fatigue. The Hollywood Reporter's David Rooney observed that the film's barrage of meta-humor about the MCU and Hollywood more broadly was, in his words, dialed up to an almost radioactive intensity, and he considered that humor to be the film's single steadiest element. Fourier of the Associated Press likewise felt the increased emphasis on self-aware genre commentary represented a meaningful improvement over the character's two prior outings. Not every notable critic was fully won over, and several major reviews reflected the more tempered, mixed side of the aggregate scores. Even among broadly positive assessments, reviewers frequently flagged the film's heavy reliance on nostalgia, cameo appearances, and references to prior Fox-era Marvel properties as a structural crutch that occasionally overshadowed its own original story and character development, a tension reflected directly in the gap between its comparatively strong Rotten Tomatoes score and its more middling Metacritic rating. The film nonetheless found a receptive and enthusiastic audience overall, a dynamic reflected clearly in the substantial gap between its more reserved critical reception and its considerably warmer reception among the movie-going public, who actually turned out in record numbers to see it.